popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me, and Justin Brown for your movie needs. Media popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault.
What's up, Little Biscuits and Sun-Dried Tomatoes? It's your boy, Eddie Collins, and joining me for this brief mini-episode is the illustrious Tatiana. How you doing?
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. So we figured we'd help you all kind of decide what movies to go see this weekend. There's quite a few that are out, and Tatiana, I've had the pleasure of seeing basically everything that's out right now that's in the top end of the box office. So we figured we'd give our thoughts on Lilo and Stitch, Final Destination Bloodlines, and get Tati's take on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. So, yeah, let's start off with Lilo and Stitch, the 2025 live-action remake of the classic Disney 2002. Yes, 2002 Lilo and Stitch film. Directed by Dean Fletcher Camp and written by two guys that have really long names, but stars Zach Galifianakis. You got Courtney B. Vance. You have Maya Keough, who made her debut as Lilo.
Keough?
You know I'm terrible at names, Tati. And then Chris Sanders, who is the original Lilo and Stitch writer and director, reprising his voice as Stitch.
Okay.
So, what were your thoughts on this live-action remake?
I mean, in general, I kind of have issues with live action when there's animated imaginary thing, just like, so I'm going to say that I had a similar thought with like the Lion King. Like, we're not using real lions, right? Obviously, we don't have real aliens and Stitch isn't real. But, and my initial thoughts are, you have to expect the story will change in order for this to be slightly believable in a live action form. Because with animation, you do have fantasy. And in this one, if they're trying to make it as real as possible, which is the major changes, with just the added element of possible alien life, then, I would also say I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. The girl who plays Lilo,
she's so cute. She's sweet.
So cute and charming, and she brings, Lilo in the animated cartoon is angry for obvious reasons, and some that we just don't really get a lot of time to talk about in the animated movie. And this one does dig a little bit deeper. So I will say that it is absolutely worth seeing to form your own opinion on it.
Yeah, there's some discourse right now about the third act, and especially with the older sister Nani's, character arc in the movie, because we have like a higher education kind of plot line with her where she's like deferred college and she wants to, study marine biology. There's a bunch of jokes about people not being able to pronounce that. And so also Nani's casting.
I think Nani's casting was the original controversy. I will say the young lady they cast to play Nani, well, she doesn't do a terrible job. While she is Hawaiian because she was born on Hawaii, she doesn't come from particular Polynesian descent, which we know for the story is pretty important, culturally as well. And so it really makes me wonder, kind of like, the larger DEI conversation of, was she the best fit for this? There is there's a good amount of surfing that is done. And so it makes me wonder if not only is there just the acting piece that needed to be considered, but the surfing piece.
Yeah, we discussed that because there's a new plot line where she was a very strong surfer, and they have pictures of her that were foreshadowing where that's going to come into play, where she's like holding rocks at the bottom of the ocean. And she's like walking across.
She's like an award-winning surfer.
So we're like, okay, so Cindy Elizabeth Agudong, she doesn't have a Wikipedia page or much information available online, so it's possible that she was like a professional athlete in that sport.
Yeah, and so I do think it's like, as a creative team, what are you willing to sacrifice? Because if you want to bring authenticity to the character, and Nani in the cartoon was also a surfer. Where this isn't like a new concept, but the cartoon was mostly focused on Lilo and Stitch, and in this movie, in the 2025 movie, it does incorporate more of Nani's experience and the sacrifices that she makes.
And the challenges, difficult challenges and decisions she has to make.
Because she's only 19.
Yeah, and her social worker in this movie isn't played by Mr. Bubbles, who in this movie is portrayed by Courtney B. Vance, not being Rames. But Tia Carrera, who's the original voice for Nani, she's the social worker working with Nani's character. And I thought it was great seeing Tia Carrera in this.
Yeah.
There's some controversy about how Child Protective Services gets involved with Nani and Lilo, especially when things escalate in the third act and things like that. But nonetheless, like there's a lot of weird, discourse about colonialism and white nationality and mentality about education and sacrifices to be. It's a whole lot of messy stuff that it's just a Disney movie. Like I think sometimes
it's odd to me because I think that people, and I can't speak for every person who has a negative feeling around it. They did make changes to this movie, especially the cast. There is a lot of, it was filmed in Hawaii. There are the writers are Hawaiian or Polynesian, I believe. There's more representation on the screen. So it's not just Tia Carrera, but also Amy Hill. Basically. And what's his name? Jason Scott Lee.
I knew that was him too. When I saw him at the restaurant, I was like, "Is that Jason Scott Lee from Jungle Book?"
No, but so cool. They create new characters because, and I'm going to be much more empathetic to this because I do. Ask me about my conspiracy theory on Puerto Rico and Hawaii. However, the culture of Puerto Rico and Hawaii is very similar, right? And so. It's not, without noticing the colonialism part, which we will save for another time and date. However, in the animated cartoon, it is just Lilo and Nani and no one else. And part of the Hawaiian and Polynesian culture is very community-based.
Yes.
And that is something that is a major change in this film. And so the reason for that major change is because culturally it is competent. In the cartoon, it's not because it's just about the aliens coming to Earth.
That's a good point. And that's why they introduced the neighbor who is now the mom of the love interest for Nani and stuff. It made sense. And given our experiences with family and community and needing to come together to support young people in the family, that's something that we understood.
Yeah, and I think that's what people are failing to realize because it's not a shot-for-shot remake.
At first, it felt like it was going to be. And
it's more than panties in a bunch, and the type and the things that are being said are wild. And you can be upset, but understand cultural competency in the fact that Nani would not really be doing this alone. She would have a community around her, albeit, maybe they're not as affluent, or maybe, they don't have as much time, but everybody pitches in these spaces. And so that is a misstep from the animated film that is integrated into this film. And with those changes come different possibilities because in 2025, right, and given the situation, asking or requiring your 19-year-old older sister to struggle and really, she is having a hard time. It's not a fairy tale. This is real life for a lot of people. And for some of them, that the way to provide a better life is to make certain sacrifices and changes in alternative ways. And so I think we are dancing around the big, the ending. And I think we do just need to address it. And we're not necessarily spoiling anything that hasn't been spoiled on the internet.
Yes. Yes. I mean, again, it's a Disney movie, and it's not like, the biggest, we're not going to be making earth shattering news by revealing like stuff that happens in the plot. And obviously, it's meeting popcorn, we spoil movies. Because that wasn't the only kind of change you were kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Obviously, you've had time to marinate your thoughts. But I remember, like, with the villains, with Zach Galifianakis, he portrays a human version of Dr. Jumba Jugaba, who was the creator of Stitch's character, right? In the animated version, he's like kind of a like
he is he has like a Russian sort of accent.
And this is Zach Galifianakis, which is fine. Like, I think he and Billy Magnuson, who play Agent Wendell Pleakley, they had great physical comedy. Like, the kids were loving that shit.
Well, yeah, Jumba and Pleakley, I think one of the things they did was Disney does have an animated cartoon series of Lilo and Stitch. And so I would say, for argument's sake, I'm not there. I wasn't in the room, obviously. I would say that giving them a human form in the movie was a budgeting thing. Yeah. Also, you can't have aliens running around. People would have lost their fucking minds.
Well, that's also like, I think that's why they made Dr. Jumba the main villain in this one. Like, he takes a real villainous turn. Like, he's very like, he's blowing up like Nani and Lilo's parents' room and shit. Like,
in the cartoon, the whole house blows up. So like,
but it makes sense because the big villain in the cartoon is that big shark. Alien
no, there's no real villain. Everybody just has a job, right? And so in the cartoon, Gantu, he's a soldier.
Yes.
He gets an order and he's completing the order. Yeah. When it comes to Jumba, he's just like for science. He's like, this is the greatest creation I ever made. We can't destroy it. It's now alive. And so in the sake of science, who are we to say this is bad or this is good? We haven't. And Pleakley is there for like the slapstick funny, but he brings, oddly enough, the humanity to the alien races because he's the one who's most studied Earth.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to Wardrobe, because every outfit they gave his character was so insane, but it fit because he doesn't know how to.
And that's
dress
his character
and stuff. Yeah, there was little things like that I thought were really cute, really charming. Controversy aside, I thought like once the movie finds its footing after the first 10 minutes or so of not being like a shot for shot remake of the first one, like they really let the actress that plays Lilo shine. She's so fucking funny. And then what you put in Stitch, and the animation's really good. I think this characterization of Stitch was really entertaining. I loved how mischievous he was. And I remember like we talked after the movie, we're like, well, they hinted at Jumba making another version of him that's more that perfects like the human aspect that's been developing in Stitch or whatever, right? And so we're like, clearly there's going to be a sequel. But then, during our press screening, they had a little animatronic Stitch drive around.
They had an animatronic Stitch scan us in.
So cute.
And then Stitch drove in the like little, Hot Wheels car, whatever they call them. I never had one as a kid. So.
Which I love that they like in the movie, in this new movie, they have him after he steals the car from that little girl. It drives off with Lilo and tries to get off the island. He takes it back to the girl and it's all fucked up. And he's just like, here you go.
Yeah, I mean,
cute stuff like that I
enjoy. So there's so much of this movie that much like Stitch would say, it's broken but it's good. And there's going to be, and no movie is perfect, but considering the cartoon does introduce a government aspect. So with Agent Bubbles, right? So with
Bubbles.
In the animated series, Cobra Bubbles is like the CPS, worker, but he's also secretly like CIA. Yeah. So you have that aspect. And so separating them actually made sense in a lot of ways. That way, Tia Carrera definitely comes in as someone from the island of the culture. And you get why she gives Nani so many chances. Because Lilo gets into trouble. I mean, she got into trouble in the animated one, but she gets into a lot of trouble in this one. And any worker assigned to your case would take that into consideration. You can't leave your kid alone unattended, and Lilo's only like 6, right? The house is on fire when they come on. It's just so much. It's like Yeah, if I left my 6-year-old at home and the house caught on fire, they would take my kid away too.
Yeah, she also served her warm Capri Sun
As tea.
disguised as tea, and Tia Carrera knew. And that, yeah, it's a lot more serious too. I think that that's one thing that, and I think this is, again, I want to get to the rating of the movie, but to just quickly touch on the controversy from my point of view, there's a lot of people talking about child protective services and these processes, and they don't understand what it's like. They really don't. And we can speak from personal experience that that's not an easy process. It's not an easy situation for anybody, and it's very nuanced. And I think that a Disney movie that Bob Iger's intentionally been like, we're trying to step away from any type of DEI controversy, political statements, blah blah blah. I don't know if that was. I think people are just maybe reading too much into it, but I don't know. I haven't talked to the writers. But having said that, Tatiana, we rate movies on scales of popcorn: small, medium, large, XL for the exceptional. If a movie does not deserve a fresh bag of popcorn, we put it into the stale pile, where we pile piles and piles of stale popcorn on it. So we watched Lilo and Stitch, the 2025 live-action remake. What say you?
Lilo and Stitch, live action, is going to get a large from me.
Okay.
I was entertained. I felt a connection to the culture. The acting was good. We cannot say
Yes.
we go to movies to feel like we're involved, to feel like, this could be real, right? And so I definitely think that, obviously, right, aliens aside, whether you believe in them or not, this could be a very real scenario that is playing out in real life, your next door neighbor, yourself.
Yep.
And so with that being said, it does get a large. I would say I am a little reluctant to give it a large just because I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm missing to be confident in that decision.
Okay.
However, if we're just going to go with the special effects were as realistic as you can possibly get them.
Yep.
The acting was great. The music was authentic. And I think the changes that were made were necessary for making it live action.
Makes sense. Okay. I'm also going to give it a large. Having just watched the original, I think 1 or 2 weeks before we saw the live action remake, pleasantly surprised by the choices they made. Again, Maya as Lilo was the movie really does rest on her shoulders. Like, if they had miscast that, this movie would have been a disaster. And I loved her characterization of Lilo. I loved the pain we saw in her expressions. I loved the way that she expressed herself when she's excited, when she's scared. She does this high-pitched scream, which I'm like, that's how kids react to things, whether it's good or bad. You know what I mean? And and there's like, I think in live action, they actually did a good job of showing kind of a sense of danger and peril for Lilo and Stitch at various times that I actually appreciate a little bit more than the animated version even. And so for that, it gets a large. It did the job. It did the job, and it's definitely one of the more successful live action remakes that Disney has done.
Yeah. So, I would say for me, my final thoughts on this are, for all the people using Ohana as a meme and for jokes and all that stuff, just a friendly reminder that family, Ohana, is what you make it.
Yes.
It doesn't, you choose who your family is. And it doesn't mean you're always blood related.
100%. And that's a perfect segue into our next review. I see what you're doing. Final Destination Bloodlines.
Yes.
Oh, boy. So this is the sixth installment of the Final Destination franchise, which I've been following since 2000 when the first one with starring Devon Sawa came out. We have been kind of catching up here and there on the series because it's all of it's on HBO Max and stuff like that.
I love me a good death scene.
You do. And you had a lot. I mean, we both had a lot of fun watching this. Our movie theater experience could have been better. Alamo Drafthouse, you got to do better. But I remember texting a mutual friend of ours after it got this movie. It saw the movie a few days before. And I'm like, this movie did. How dare this movie be this good? The acting is on point. The characters, they did a great. The marketing was brilliant because the teaser was the tattoo kid being all fucked up in a tattoo shop, and you're like, well, obviously he's dead at the end of this trailer. That's how he dies. But then spoiler everybody, we learn it's a fake out, and he's alive. And I was just like, this movie already has me. Like, it's already 40 minutes in, and they've already seen some really fun shit with like the initial opening with the Space Needle or whatever the fuck. And I'm like, I love this movie, but what were your general thoughts?
No, I was going to say, I actually thought, one of the biggest things we've had, I think, in the last year or so, as far as our feedback is concerned with trailers, is that the trailers were giving away too much of the movie, right? For whatever reason it may be. Maybe they weren't confident that people were going to come out and they felt like they needed to drop some things in the trailer. So I think the trailers that they released for Final Destination Bloodlines definitely were red herrings across the board, because when you sit down to watch it and you realize, like, yes, it's a sequel, but then it's also something else, and you're like, holy shit, it is a present and a past and a future connection. And usually I hate these forward, backwards, sideways, like storylines. This one was simple enough where you can get it, you work through it. And additionally, it made sense with the Final Destination series as well. But another testament to the actors here, just because it's a Final Destination movie doesn't mean that they needed to cheese it up like it was, I don't know. I don't want to say Hallmark, but those
it was solid.
Lifetime type.
The first movie is always like, and this is right up there with the first one, folks. I think in some ways it might even be better than the first one. The first one's incredibly grounded, which is why I think it like has such a long legacy. The second one, the log death incident, that's like apparently everyone's favorite. I thought it was fine, whatever. But then the third one has the best acting with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who's like a acclaimed actress and stuff. Like, she's incredible. She's great. But this movie, the whole cast is fucking doing their thing. Shout out to Caitlin Santa-Juana, who plays Stephanie, who's our main protagonist, and she learns about her family and how the grandmother evaded death in like the 60s at this launch of like the Sky Hotel and stuff like that. Like, it all just works for me. And then like even the grandma having to show her like this is what death has planned, and like sacrificing herself to show like Stephanie this shit's not to be trifled with.
Grandma was about that life.
Yeah,
she was like, I've been avoiding it.
She knew how she was going to die too. She saw in her little book of secrets or whatever. We got a great send off for Tony Todd. This is his last feature film as William Bloodworth. And we learn a little bit more about his backstory through like the 60s flashback. There's also a new element that's a penny. I think that's going to be a through line for future Final Destination movies now. Because there's this penny that's kind of been pops up.
Yeah, this rolling penny. And then so it's like, oh, they're going to, we have to see if there's like any sort of coin references in any of the previous ones.
And it also it hints that they could do this with other previous movies. Because the bloodline thing works in like that people that survived the Sky Hotel incident, because the grandmother Iris, she was able to get a lot of people, she was able to save a lot of people with her premonition. All those people started dying, and then their families started dying because technically their bloodlines weren't supposed to continue.
Yeah, so it takes a while to because obviously people procreate, and we're talking about the 60s and 70s, so...
Yeah, which just leads to a funny bit when like they talk about the bloodlines, and you discover that one of the kids in the family of this extended family isn't actually a full was it not Reyes, but
they're not related to the person they think they're
to the grandma.
Yeah, they're not related to the person they're supposed to be related to.
But nonetheless, that character ends up getting the most brutal death in the whole fucking movie. I'm not saying who it is.
Okay.
We spoil movies, but
I
I'm
know
also
we
trying
spoil,
to be, because I do want people to be surprised. I want people to have a lot of fun with this. Shout out to Guy Busick, who was one of the writers on this. He also helped reboot Scream with Scream 5, which, I don't know what happened with Scream 6, but Scream 5 was a good restart to the franchise, in my opinion. John Watts, who does the Spider-Man movies, he produced this. He came up with the story. And so shout out to him for using his clout, like doing some of the biggest superhero franchises. And they're like, Warner Brothers like, what do you want to work with? He's like, kind of love Final Destination. Like, why not? That's what I would do.
Yeah, it's, it's weird because like I said, it's like sequel, prequel, but also like spin-off. Like it's just like a very good sort of, you didn't know you needed it until you see it, and then you were like, oh shit, like
And all the
I
deaths
could
are
fuck
fun.
with this. And
You were having fun with all the deaths.
I mean, I'm very morbid.
But the redirect, I think you really enjoyed that.
I love a good redirect because I'm pretty good at figuring certain things out, especially in like the horror sort of thriller genre. And so this one is not one I often give too much thought to because it is a Final Destination movie. And so the idea is to have these sort of like odd, surprising death scenes. Yeah. And so there were quite a few that I just never saw coming. And that's what makes it fun for me, and I think that that's what most people really enjoy about this stuff. 100%. And also, there are, in the previous movies we've been seeing of Final Destination, people have been building sort of the library of signs of when death is coming or what to be aware of and things of that nature. So because we also, as viewers, have built up that awareness and that foundation, we're also like, oh my gosh, the wind is blowing, the song is playing, like you're catching on that too. And
there's a funny moment where Stephanie, like, she's trying to warn her cousins, and they're like, what do you think is going to happen, like, with this situation? Like, this one guy points out a bunch of different things are happening in the neighborhood. She's like, well, that could happen, like, that wind, weed blower could distract these kids, but then causes a soccer ball to hit you in the face, and then you fall into this thing. And he's like, whatever. And then it happens to another character. And I remember the crowd, we were just like, oh shit. Like, there's just a lot of, like, you have to see this in the theater. Like, obviously, if you need to, money's tight, watch it when it comes on demand or whatever, or a streamer. But like, it's a lot of fun watching this with a crowded theater.
Yeah, I agree. This was definitely one that, I mean, I can't wait to see it again just because, and I want to put it like, I don't know if we do like a Final Destination marathon. I know that's not your favorite thing to do. I like to marathon scary movies.
You do. She once watched all the Saw movies like within 2 days. It was very disturbing.
But did you die?
No, but a lot of people on screen did. Tatiana, what is your rating for Final Destination Bloodlines?
Oddly enough, this is getting an XL. Wow. I don't know what they could have done to make it better.
That's fair.
And because of that, because I don't know, right? Like, I don't feel like I'm lacking in anything. I didn't feel nothing was missing. It is for the Final Destination, right? Like, thinking about it as for what it is an XL.
Wow, that's impressive. I'm actually teetering between a large and an XL. I'm going to give it a large. I don't think it's perfect, but I had a lot of fun with this. And to your point, I think I said this after we saw the movie and we were walking to the train. I'm like, if I were tasked with rebooting this as a writer, I don't know if I would have gone that direction. Yeah. And I think that's what's so surprising and smart about what they did. Because not only is this direction, it's very fruitful for any future sequels, but it also allows you to kind of tap into the past if you wanted to, with anyone that maybe was slightly involved in like, or even, for instance, it could be, you could call back to the first one and like say, and there's a hidden, it was a cut scene, the first one I think I told you about, where where Devon Sawa's character and Ali Latner, they have sex, and then there was like a cut scene where she actually had a kid. And they, in theory, could do like some weird things where characters had secret kids or things like that. Yeah,
but you're going like deep into the like nerdy fandom. But there's
a lot of content people like the studio could tap into to call back to previous sequels.
Yeah, I mean, because they bring back her character in later movies.
In the second one, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Which, by the way, if you're a fan of Final Destination 2, there's a lot of fun callbacks for you on this one.
So yeah, I mean, again, for Final Destination and the type of movie it is and what it does, I don't know that I've seen another movie in this genre or in this space that like I felt good leaving after. Fair. Also, I like the week before, didn't I tell you I had like a Final Destination moment? And I was like, not me, not today. So there was something about like seeing this and being like, ha, we can live, it happens.
Now, for our final Tati's take, Justin and I did a full review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning that will be out on Patreon a week or so after this release of this mini episode. But Tatiana, I felt it would be fair to get your take on the quote unquote final Mission Impossible, starring Tom Cruise, directed and written by Christopher McQuarrie, starring Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Angela Bassett, and a few other folks.
Well, if you haven't seen our interview with Angela Bassett and
Yes.
Tarzan Davis, please go check that out on YouTube.
Check it out, youtube.com/Medium P Podcast.
Is it the final Mission Impossible? It's called The Final Reckoning, but it doesn't say like the final Mission.
All the posters are like, it's one last time and all that stuff.
Well, maybe one last time for Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I would say so. Full disclosure, I have not seen any of the Mission Impossible movies from start to finish. This is my first Mission Impossible.
I mean, it's not terribly insane because they're not
This is a
most
3-hour movie.
It is almost 3 hours. I was very surprised by that. They should have told us that.
They should have told us. First of all,
had
I did not know what I was signing up for.
Yes.
So I did feel just a bit bamboozled.
Oh my gosh.
I will say, I know the tropes from like just like popular culture and what Mission Impossible is. So I'm not completely oblivious to what Mission Impossible does and Tom Cruise's involvement in it. And for those of you who know that Desi Arnaz actually created Mission Impossible.
Oh, okay. Shout out to Desi Arnaz. Damn.
Yeah. So, anyways, so long story short, this movie did a lot. I was not prepared. And apparently I didn't need to be prepared because they gave exposition.
All the exposition.
To everything that was happening based on previous movies. So I didn't need to watch. I'm happy I didn't watch the previous ones because I got my background all in one sitting. And so it makes me wonder, obviously it was intentional. I wonder if they are trying to just remind people. I know there's like, how many, there's like, what,
There's
9?
8.
Yeah, there's like 8-9 movies in this whole franchise. So it's a lot of info to collect.
Yes.
But, you know, I'm trying to find like the nicest ways to say, I appreciate Tom Cruise for being very dedicated to his craft. It was very redundant.
Yes.
In this movie, and so much so I was like, is this every movie? Because then there's why are people so excited for Mission Impossible if
it was very oddly paced? It was very slow, a lot of exposition, a lot of people recapping shit from the past. Like, it constantly was stunting its own momentum at times.
Yeah, it threw me, and there's so many characters that they want you to be invested in, and I'm like, wait, am I not following Tom Cruise? Also, I'm all for like suspending belief and reality, but some of this shit was obnoxious. Like, he had 24 hours to go deep diving into the ocean, and then also maybe kind of like like it was just so
He was flying upside down in a plane.
Yeah, like it was.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But he had to like travel all around the world and wind up in a submarine, and then he went to the bottom of the ocean in less than 24 hours because the 24-hour clock like it's still going. I was like, this is I mean, I get it. This mission is clearly impossible.
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, he should not have been able to do this. Just to steer even in the fastest jets and all the things, he would not make it from point A to point B in the time needed to make this happen.
Well, that's why it's called Mission Impossible. But there were
But
parts.
clearly the mission is possible
Yes.
because he's done it. So why do they keep making them?
I don't know, T. But give us your rating for Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
Oh man. Okay. I love me some Angela Bassett. She's probably like the best thing of this movie for me. And because of that, I can't let a sister down.
Yeah, but they kept making her do that grimace face that she does, and they kept closing in on it. It's like you said, it's redundant. They kept going, like it kept showing us the same reaction shots and shit. Anyways,
I mean, I would love to know what the ideal vision for this movie was before someone came in and chopped it up and screwed it, because we often talk about how we see the potential in things, and sometimes we know based on the trades or gossip, right? Like the studio got too involved. And so then they had to make changes. And it makes me wonder if that's what happened here. Like, was this the intention to being like, hey, we don't want people to go and binge all the other movies? Like, we're just going to give them all the...
I can see that.
I don't know. I don't know. And because I don't know, and oddly enough, because there's 8 movies, I should, in theory, have seen this one and be like, I need to see the rest of them. But I don't want to. And as such, it's going to get a small. It ticks boxes. It does what it does. I'm sure it is all part of the Mission Impossible tropes that it can exist. But will I watch it again? No. Do I want to see the previous movies? No. Might I be interested if they decide to reboot, recast, whatever it is they plan on doing, because that's also up in the air. It's very open-ended.
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay.
But there's no definitives here. And as such, the only definitive I've been giving it is a definite small.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. If you want to hear my film rating, you got to sign up for Patreon at patreon.com/mediapopcorn. We got $2 to $15 tier packages available. You'll have to sign up for the $5 one if you want to hear our Mission Impossible full review with Justin and I. Again, patreon.com/mediapopcorn. Tatiana, how can people follow you on the social medias?
On the social media.
Okay.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Boricua Collins.
There you go, folks. You can follow me at Frodo_Blackens on Instagram and Threads. Follow the show at Medium P Podcast on all social media platforms, mediumpopcorn.com for all your Medium Popcorn needs, including our links for YouTube. You can push the donate button on PayPal, all that good stuff, as well as tpublic.com/Medium Popcorn if you want some Medium Popcorn swag or, a little bag and stuff like that for the summer. Help yourself over there. But again, patreon.com/Medium Popcorn is what really helps support the show, keep the lights on. But if money is tight, leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast application or push that subscribe button on youtube.com/Medium P Podcast. All right, y'all. Talk to y'all soon.
Bye.